Hello everybody and welcome to 97% Fire. My name's Colin and behind me is the dining room we're converting into a live room as part of our temporary home recording studio build. Now at the minute it's nothing more than a glorified space with a guitar pin, but that's all about to change. So today we're going to be building and installing the acoustic treatment. We get to use manly tools like this. First we need to get some materials and go over to the workshop. That's not a hammer. That's a hammer. So first things first, this channel is not sponsored. However, a viewer has reached out and very kindly donated all the materials that we're going to use for these acoustic panels. I've got their name here, so I'll just give a quick shout out to my mum. Thanks, Mum. Now, first of all, we want to cut a header and a footer at 1 meter 760 mil, which is about 68 Americans. Okay, so we've got our header and footer. This will be near enough the exact width of the window. We just want to leave a little gap so we can get it in and out easily. Now it's not a bad idea to go and check this right now, because if it's too long and too short, now's the time to find out. So I'll go and do that. So that fits perfectly, which is good, always good to check. Just a quick note about what timber we're using. So this is 4x2. If you look for it on the website, that's what it will come up as. And the reason we're using 4 inches is because the acoustic rock wool is also 4 inches. So we want it to be a nice snug fit without gaps, because sound propagates in different ways around objects and through objects. But if you actually look at the timber that's arrived, even though it says 4x2, which should be 100 mil, that is, can you see that? 89 mil. And this wood that I ordered a couple of weeks ago is 93, and this one is also 93. But the difference between them is that is sawn, see it's really rough, and that is smooth. So that is what's called planed all around. So depending where you buy your wood from, you can put in 4x2, you get loads of different versions. That's the reason why. So that's the original 4-inch cut at the mill, and then they plane it so it's nice and smooth and you don't get splinters, but it is slightly smaller. Can you see? Now, for what we're doing, converting a dining room into a live room, it'd be absolutely fine. Now, if you were making some sort of scientific device that was going to be used to fire up to an asteroid and save the world, you might want your measurements a bit more accurate. Okay, so that is our header, which will go at the top of the window, and that is our footer, which will go at the bottom of the window, and then in between we're going to have supports. Now we need our uprights to be 1.26 at a finished length. Now don't forget, you need to take off the header and the footer. Yeah, so that'll be 1.26 minus 75 mil. Okay, now because different woods are different thicknesses, a really accurate way, an easy way of doing this is to measure 1.26, do a little mark, so that is the finished height, and then you take off your header and your footer, so you just drop a couple of offcuts of the same wood that you use and draw a line, and then that plus the header and footer will be exactly the right length. Let me show you a really easy way to make them exactly the same length. Okay, so on the chop saw what we've done is we've installed what we call a fence, which is basically just a piece of wood strapped to the back of the chop saw, and we have our mark of the piece of wood we want it to cut, and what we can do is, with the power off, you can drop the blade directly onto the mark. Yeah, so we know that's absolutely perfect. And then what you do at the other end is you make a little jig like so, and that slides up to the end of the wood, and then you clamp it into place, and that way you can cut your piece of timber, slide the wood up and cut another one, and they'll all be identical. This now I'm not actually going to do this bit until the very end when I've cut all the wood. I just need to show you the size of the slab, because I don't particularly want insulation everywhere. So you can see it's 100mm thick, and the panels are 600mm wide, or 2 foot if you're American. So rather than getting insulation all over the place, what I'll do is I'll cut a batten 600mm long, which will represent the gap, and then we can set out the uprights of the plug. It's surprisingly heavy for what it is. Luckily I have some spare wood. As my granddad said, always keep some in your garage in case you need it. So 600, we're actually going to go 595, because we want it to be a good and tight fit where the insulation holds itself in under friction, but not so tight that we over compress the insulation, because that way it'll have a different acoustic characteristic to that it was designed with. Okay, so next job is to mark out the header and the footer to take the uprights. Insulation. Save that for later. So we know that we're going to have one upright at one end. Then we'll take our insulation, which will go there. Okay. And then we'll have another upright. Okay. X marks the spot. Now, to keep things even in terms of weight, I'm going to work from the other end in, so the gap in the middle will be less than a sheet. So same thing again, mark your uprights, mark where your insulation will be, mark your next upright, then because of the width we're going to have to cut a piece of insulation from the middle. That's going to be 420 mil, but that means we only have to cut one piece rather than lots. So you should end up with marks, can you see it? Like that. Okay. Once you know where your uprights are going to be, it's a really good idea to countersink the wood, especially if it's new and dry, because it has a tendency to split. Now this is going to be wrapped in material and it's going to be screwed together. Now the reason I'm doing that is because it's temporary. So I can, after the project's finished, I could, in theory, unwrap the material and then I could unscrew the panels and then I could maybe cut them up into individual 2-foot panels to hang on the wall somewhere else. But if you wanted to nail them or glue them or screw them or bracket them, do whatever you wish. There are no rules, only guidelines, as a very wise man called Ian Mann once said. Right. Oh, we need more power. Okay, so then you should end up with nice countersunk holes, which will correspond to the uprights. Right, one down, one to go. Crikey. There's another good example of why it's handy to countersink. That there is landed right on a knot. And as you can see from the drilling, it's quite hard to get through. So if you're trying to force a screw straight through that, you might end up with bent screws or snapped heads, depending on the quality of your fixings and your tools, of course. All right, let's start to assemble. Oh, it's not going to fit on the workbench. So I'll do the bottom first and then I'll do the top. So in terms of fixings, we have several options. I have chosen to use Acoustic screws because I have them in the workshop. So for this fixing, that screw will go through there, onto there. So that's quite a substantial fixing. And remember that this is an acoustic panel, so what we're trying to do is get rid of air gaps. If you're making smaller panels, maybe the 2-inch ones, you could use a mitre joint maybe, screw that, or you can use different types of brackets. Not quite as good, and certainly something like that wouldn't be suitable for 4x2 because it'd be too heavy. Or if you're a carpenter, you could even try cutting in some biscuits So they cut into there, make a really nice joint. But screws is what we'll have, so screws is what we will use. Also makes it ultimately dismantleable. Okay, top carpentry tip. Top carpentry tip for getting a really nice joint. First of all, use the correct size head for your screws. If you find your drill spinning and going, then it's probably because the bit's wrong. So that fits nicely. Different screws have different size bits. Second tip is we want the wood to be nice and flush on the bottom of here. So to help hold it in place, what we can do is use an offcut like that. Lightly clamp it on so they're together. So when this comes in, it is completely flush. And now we don't have to hold anything. Another top tip is always check your battery's fully charged before you try and screw something in on camera. It is dead. Lovely, a bit loud. Things were supposed to be sound engineers, eh? There you go, it's a bit easier. Number two. Check it with our spacer. Now you can use a square here if you want to, but the spacer does a similar job. So a little block just to help it stay flush. So the reason for the clamp is to get this in line. You see the wood's slightly twisted. If you put a brace like that and hold it together, then that'll be nice and flush. See, we have there is a piece of twisted wood. So if you look on the other side, it sits perfectly flush. But there it has a twist in it. There you go. So by clamping it, we already have the top flush in the right place. We can twist the wood, bend it back to where we want it to be, which is straight. There you go, nice and flush, even though it's being covered anyway. That will help it sit in the recess properly. So you can see earlier we countersunk through a knot and it's proven really tricky to get a screw into. So, top tip, bit of wax from a candle on the screw before you start. And a bit of mechanical advantage to make sure it's in the right plane. And that should go straight in, he says. Boom. Okay, there you have it. The first plug done. Apologies for the sound quality. This is a quick test fit. I'm just filming it on my phone, so I don't have to bring everything in and out of the workshop. So what we can see is, even though it's square, there's quite a gap at the bottom, at the top, and not at the bottom. So we just need to be mindful when we cover it. We don't put too much material on, so it doesn't fit. But in terms of acoustic tightness, and there'll be an air gap behind it, that should be lovely. Okay, spoiler alert, in episode 1 I kept mentioning that the studio space is temporary because we will be running another series where we build from start to finish a proper purpose-built studio with floating floors, rooms in the room, all that sort of stuff. Well, this is the space where it will be built. Now, why temporary? Well, this channel will have another series where we build a complete purpose-built recording studio from the ground upwards, bricks, blocks, concrete, room inside a room, floating floors, all that type of stuff. But that is for a different day. Well, you join me again here in Incendiary Corner. That fitted like a glove. So next we're going to build a plug for the door. This is going to be 1.48 wide by just over 2 meters high. Cue the time lapse and my favourite happy music. Thanks for the camera, Nelly Nita. Okay, so that is the window frame completed, the door frame completed. We've already done the window frame. I'm going to go and test. Hello. I'm going to go and test to see if it fits, because at the bottom of the door there is skirting boards either side, so I'm going to have to make a little relief in this corner and this corner, so it will slide in over the skirtings. But can you see how useful and easy it was to make a little jig there for the insulation? So we can see that the insulation should fit in all the spaces, and we'll have a little offcut in the middle. But I've also did it in the middle. I was originally going to run them long ways, but I've saved more wood this way where I can make another panel. I've done it in the middle for a bit of rigidity, because that's probably where you're going to have some handles to lift the thing in and out. Okay, see if it fits. Okay, well, good news. I've just brought it back from a test fit. I'll just show you here. That is where the skirting board is. So I just need to do a slight cut either side like that, move the screws, and then it will fit. By pure fluke or epic design, it also happens to be exactly the right size to fit the other door. Now, I was going to do that in two pieces because there's two doors, but I might do it as one, and that way, if I use these two and take out the window plug, I could actually form a makeshift vocal booth and have it in another room. So plan B, but a better plan. Okay, I'll let you know when it's done. You can only enjoy so much time lapse. So new plan B is to make two panels the same, so I can use them as a makeshift vocal booth. I hadn't actually thought about this before, so we don't actually have enough wood, but what I do have is the sides of an old pine bed and a table saw. So let's make shift. So there we have it. The second one, we just had enough wood after we made some more timber out of a bed frame. This is actually 4 times bigger than what I was originally going to do, but I think this will work much better. And even though the innards are slightly different thicknesses of wood, it should all fit the same. I've also put a little relief in here for the skirting. Right, let's see if it fits, and then we'll get on with this fiberglassing. So we are on the camera phone again. Apologies for the audio. There we go. Lovely. Right, back to the workshop. Okay, so I'm going to clamp the material to the bench, like so. Been hoovering this for months. And then I'll put the panel on top, like so. I'll check to see that we've got enough material. And using the staple gun, we'll fasten a couple. So we'll take one piece of insulation, We'll drop it in. Now interestingly, it was packed so tight that the first 3 slabs have actually stuck together. Now if you're looking for insulation to do acoustic panels, you'll read that there's all sorts of different types. This is open cell insulation, and that absorbs the energy, the sound waves, basically eventually turns it into heat. And this is closed cell insulation, which is more likely to reflect than absorb. Okay, number 2. Now this is the annoying bit because we've got to cut one. Now the best way to cut insulation is quite simply to get someone else to do it. But failing that, a sharp Stanley knife will suffice. This is not a sharp Stanley knife. See if that's any better. Oh, yeah. Now it's best to go nice and slow with this so you don't get fibres everywhere. Probably hear in the background I've got the extractor on. You can also wear a face mask, but I find that just irritates you around the face. Now I probably could have left a bit more material on there just to make it easier. Okay, here we go. The moment of truth. First things first, I would strongly recommend not doing this on your own. Will it fit? God, I hope so. Well, there you have it. It's in. Well, it does make a difference. Now, I'll have to do a proper test to find out exactly how much of a difference this makes. I would say, though, if I did have more material, I might do 2 layers. So where the struts are inside, there and there, staple it all round first to keep it a bit tighter, and then do the blue as a top layer. But yeah, hey, not bad. Okay, so there we have the final product. That is the full panel installed in the doorway. That is the full panel installed in the window. And then this is the third panel that I've gone over the doors with completely. I've made 2 temporary legs for this. It's actually on wheels, it can just pop in and out really easily. I was originally going to fit this type of panel over the glass, but now we have the option to roll this over there, and we can make a temporary vocal booth, or we can isolate the guitars or something. And with the final insulation we had left, I've made this panel. I'm thinking that that might go above the drums as a drum cloud, and this panel here can go into the control room as a cloud above the desk. Now, I'll see if this will pick up on camera. I can try and do it one-handed. So, there you go. Just simply rolls out. There's the temporary supports. And there's the glass. So it might be that at a later date, I actually put those type of panels on the door, but that would mean drilling holes in the wood, which is not really part of the temporary ethos of the room. Right, at a later date, we will do, maybe in the next video, we'll repeat the balloon test just quickly. We don't need to go over that again. And then we'll be able to compare the acoustic signatures of the room. Although I can say, from standing inside it, it sounds amazing. It sounds like a proper recording studio. If anyone's ever worked in a proper studio, you can sort of hear yourself walking in. And this is just like that. Haha! Looks like my head's on fire. The only downside of this, of course, is it's very dark now, and we have to have the doors open every now and again, otherwise we won't be able to breathe. But it's not actually airtight, so we should be fine. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe for two reasons. First of all, it'd help out the channel amazingly, and it wouldn't cost you a penny. And second of all, it might make my 11 and 13-year-old sons even more impressed that their old dad's doing YouTube, which is going to be cool. Alright, next time we shall be doing the control room. Catch you then.